I've never played a Silent Hill game. I don't think I've really played any horror games, not properly. So what would happen if someone like me played a remake of arguably one of the scariest horror games of all time, Silent Hill 2? For reference, I managed to avoid spoilers for this game and pretty much all of the other Silent Hill games as well, so I'm not going to be talking about story spoilers in this video, and I'm also not going to be offering any comparison to the original, as that's not my basis. I'm here to talk about my experience as a new player as I was going in blind. I'll set the scene as to how the game begins to give any new players an idea of how it feels to play this game. From the start, you are immersed in a world of murky greens, rusty browns, and depressing grey. After the intro cutscene, there's this stretch of about 4 or 5 minutes where nothing really happens. No sudden scares, just James, our protagonist, walking from his car into the town of Silent Hill. And this nothingness is suffocating. Time starts to lose meaning as you walk through the fog. Your visibility is reduced to just a few steps ahead, and the forest hums with subtle yet unsettling sounds that you can't quite place as wildlife, but don't care too long to stick around to find out. Then you reach a well, unassuming at first, but as you approach, an ominous red glow emanates from inside it, the low, droning soundtrack rising. And I will be repeatedly talking about sound and the audio design in this game, because my god, if it isn't one of the most impactful aspects of it. When you peer over the edge into the well, you see a red square floating in the water. It's a pretty strange thing to find here, abstract. The thing stares back at you, and to your surprise, this is actually your save point. Honestly, I could write a whole video on the uniqueness of the save points in this game. It teaches you early on to look for these red squares, and despite now knowing what they are, they still continue to make you feel uneasy. I remember this one time where a particular save point was located in this hallway with these dark corridors branching off, and in front of it, a covered and heavily locked box atop a pedestal attached with these spiked metal chains from either side. How open and sinister for a place to pause your game. It's no quiet, warm study with delicate, soothing background music. It's paranoia. That's one of the reasons why this game works so well. You're never allowed to feel safe. There are essentially 6 main environments within this game, and I'll be mainly talking about the different types of horror in each area, so there's going to be 0 character and story spoilers. I genuinely want anyone who hasn't played this game to go play it, so if you don't want spoilers about what you find in the areas, click off this video now and go buy the game. I'll broadly define them as town, apartments, hospital, prison, labyrinth, and hotel. As you progress, the world gets stranger, more disjointed, and emotionally intense. The town is just wonderful. I can see why Silent Hill is as iconic as I've heard it to be. It's moody, desolate, and eerie. A perfect introduction that something isn't right in this world. Everything feels wrong. Overgrown streets, empty buildings, vandalism. You stumble into a flower shop and find a bloody smear on the floor. James mutters,
"What is this?"
When it's painfully clear what it is, it's blood. Later at the crossroads, you find a larger splatter. More of this stuff, he says. This strange detachment James has, his refusal to call it what it is, makes you uneasy. It hints at his own fractured psyche, a theme that only deepens as you progress in the game. At this point, you haven't actually fought anything. You don't even have a weapon. The only other human interaction at this point was a brief, cryptic conversation with a girl named Angela in a graveyard. So why do I feel so terrified? Eventually, you see your first enemy. It's not a fight though, not yet. It's a figure, vaguely human, shrouded in fog, moves unnaturally, whirling towards a house, its guttural groans cutting through the silence. The game breadcrumbs you its horrors, teasing you with just enough to let your imagination spiral. Your first real combat encounter happens in a cramped, dimly lit room, armed with nothing but a wooden plank with some spikes on the end. You're forced into a desperate, messy melee against this grotesque creature, It's clumsy, it's chaotic, and it sets the tone perfectly as to how James will navigate this world. You get a better look at the creature here. There's this strange zipper-like pattern running up its back, with these little fixtures resembling corset fastenings or the clasps of a bra. It struggles, its arms and head appearing trapped under a layer of viscera. It's horrifying. All it can do is stagger around on its platform heels and vomit in your direction. This is your first glimpse into the body horror that makes up the enemies in this game. Distorted, perverse, and weirdly suggestive. I probably sound like some kind of deviant to any of you who haven't played this game, but trust me, all of these horrors, except for one, are female for a reason and tailored for James. Now, I've talked too much about the town, but for me, it served as a great start to a horror game. It doesn't throw you into the deepest pits of hell straight away and go, "Here, scary, right?" It's believable. All you know is that James is looking for his wife, Mary, in the town of Silent Hill. Okay, that sounds easy enough. But as you explore, you start to think, hey, why is there a 20-foot wall of bedsheets blocking my way? And, that's a weird message written on the wall. Something is not right here, but whether it's the town itself or seeing it through the lens of our main character, that you'll have to discover. Next are the apartments, which are the opposite of the town. They're dark, cramped, and claustrophobic. What lies in the stairwell, behind a locked door, or in the closet? Here you experience a lot of strange phenomena, short interactions with new characters, and a new enemy type. Now this area seems to have catered to what I find personally quite scary, corridors and mannequins, the latter of which is exactly that new enemy type. In a room filled with sheet-covered figures and clothes, just for a second you think it might be a cop-out until this abomination jumps at you. Legs on legs, which kicks or punches you. Oh my god, this was my favourite enemy design and encounter by far. I even cosplayed them, for goodness sake. I loved them so much. The scares in this game consist mostly of tension, shock, but not really jump scares in the overdone sense. However, these legs definitely are the most gotcha of all the enemies. They hide, they pretend to be furniture. Whenever I entered a room that looked too calm and good to be true, I would think, where are the legs? They did grow on me. I love to hate them, but I hate to love them. As per the art director, the inspiration for this particular creature design is spoiler territory, but the impression I got when I played it for the first time just added to my suspicions of anatomy and horror. An entity made entirely of shapely legs. You find this sexy, James? This is your idea of the peak female form? Anyway, back to another scary element, the corridors. One particularly stomach-dropping moment was when I was walking down one of the apartment hallways. You learn that this section of the building is undergoing renovations, and as you explore, the background noise begins to change. Something that sounds like distorted, muffled, heavy breathing. And then there's static. I haven't mentioned the radio yet, but basically it's an automatic game mechanic that acts as an audio cue to let you know when enemies are nearby. And as you inch forward with the deep breathing and the radio going wild, you see a red glow ahead. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, my brain logically concluded that must be a save point, only to rush forward and realise, no, that's not a save point, that's one of the most iconic Silent Hill enemies of all time, Pyramid Head. Only a thin chain-link fence separates James from this entity, but he doesn't try to attack. He just stands there, staring at you. And then shortly after exploring the rooms, you find yourself on the other side, but now Pyramid Head is nowhere to be seen. Or is he? Pyramid Head is a recurring character, that's not the last you'll see of him, and I really enjoyed all of his encounters. Odd for a guy who doesn't have a single line of dialogue, what can be conveyed through body language and symbolism. After a close call with Pyramid Head, a second time you cross into a different place, the Otherworld. From my understanding on a first playthrough, it's basically a grimier, more difficult and more stressful version of the area you were just in. So here you are in the Otherworld Apartments. And it sucks here. You get an upgraded version of that first enemy type. Their appearance slightly changes to lean even more into the BDSM aesthetic, and now they burst into poisonous gas when you defeat them. Yay! And then there's apartment 209. I have an absolutely massive bone to pick with you. I can't possibly convey how disturbed I was entering this particular room and having my ears violated. Am I being overdramatic with this? Absolutely. It's just a whisper, but walking into that room and hearing this made my skin crawl. The fact that it's projected as a whisper, yet the volume raised uncomfortably loud, the smacking, the sibilance, the fast pace, you can't make out anything that it's saying, let alone who is saying it. The room is empty, it's the unexpected and the incomprehensible that really makes this game. I regrettably had to re-listen to this part many times for this video, and I still couldn't understand what was being said. I did look it up though, and from what I've read, there's no concrete conclusion. Some guesses have definitely altered my hearing of it on repeated listenings, but apparently the original clean audio track was found to be a generic sound effect, something intended to make up stock whispering sounds. And that might be a bit anticlimactic to hear, but I think it's wonderful how many theories and interpretations of the audio the community has come up with. And that is kind of also why this game is so great. I really doubt that two people would arrive at the same conclusion after playing this game and what they take from it. Anyway, I'm fighting not to analyze everything I found here. It's not this kind of video. We're talking about what is scary. And what else is scary? Hospitals. This area is huge, with multiple floors and a lot of up and downs. The background noise is also deeply unsettling. More breathing, pipes groaning, and machine-like noises like a ventilator. You also get the nurses, or should I say the bubblehead nurses, and I love how they're introduced. When you first enter the hospital and do this mini puzzle, you come across a photograph of some of the staff. However, all of their faces appear smeared and unrecognisable, and then later, with the lights flickering, a figure stumbles towards you. Into the light, you see the short, dirty, once white uniform, stockings, garter, and covered head twitching inhumanely fast, blurring and spluttering. God, it's so disturbing and yet so hard to look away from at the same time. For some people, hospitals are a very scary setting, let alone the concept of a horror game area. A place meant to help and heal people, somewhere meant to be clean and safe. Yet why do we only remember the pain, the bad news, the memories? As you play, it becomes suggested that this is what James associates this place with. If you're familiar with my Elden Ring videos, then oh boy, you know how much I love to read flavor text. Many notes are scattered throughout this game, newspaper clippings, journal entries, reminder notes. The hospital is filled with things to read, mostly the ramblings of patients whose grip on reality is slipping away, and some of these notes don't make complete sense, yet somehow they hit with this strange clarity that sticks with you. One in particular is, "This will take you where you need to be, though probably not the way you want to, and there's bound to be some pain involved. There always is." Reading this felt like a weight had hit my gut, although I didn't know why yet. And right on cue, things immediately escalated after this moment. Another sudden encounter with Pyramid Head that scared the life out of me, and funnily enough, he throws you down a couple of floors into what looks like the hospital's psychiatric ward. Well, very fitting. Shortly after, you also encounter a new enemy type in a boss fight with this brilliant build-up, a shocking reveal, and yet another execution of great body horror. The phrase, "what the hell am I looking at?" was repeated many times throughout this game. This monstrosity is an amalgamation of flesh trapped in a metal cage, legs dangling lifelessly like a rag doll, and underneath it all is this smacking, writhing mouth that earns it the name Flesh Lip. The placement of this mouth between the legs of the body bag is once again very fascinating. There's something so unique about the way you fight in this game. I wouldn't necessarily classify it as something typical within the action genre. It's slow, deliberate, and methodical, but the pacing works in its favour. It lets you take it in, the horrifying details, of each monster, their design, their meaning. Fleshlit burrows above the ceiling panels, dangling down just long enough for you to land a shot at the exposed flesh beneath the cage. With every attack, the metal gradually breaks apart, eventually falling to the floor, and you can actually see one limp arm hanging off the top. My point is that having the time to notice all these details while still keeping the tension high is to the game's merit. And after this, you go to the Otherworld version of the hospital. Oh my god, it sucks here. The sounds are so horrible, the stressful drones that won't stop, some kind of machine alarm beeping, and at one point you even hear a heartbeat in one of the rooms. I hate it, but it's so good. Well, at least we get a new nurse design, which looks like they're wearing a darker version of their uniform and fighting with a blade instead of a metal pipe. And some also really harrowing stuff that I can't go into detail for spoiler reasons. When you leave the hospital, you're reminded that time is passing, although the sensation is incredibly warped. When you first came here, the sun was setting, golden hours splashing through the windows, and even a breeze. It was almost peaceful. Now you're alone. It's pouring with rain. You don't know if you're in the other world, the real world, or if the real world is even real. He who is not bold enough to be stared at from across the abyss is not bold enough to stare into it himself. The door that wakes in darkness, opening into nightmare. Or perhaps you are a fool. The truth usually betrays people. After stumbling around the overworld and having a great introspective time, you will eventually head to a tunnel, and there you meet probably my least favourite enemy. In the pitch black, you will hear the thwack and splat as something charges towards you, although not on the ground level, with two bulging club-like arms, and at the end, maws that act like sucker cups. Those are mouths, okay? I mean, YouTube, they literally are, but I know what you think they are. And just when I couldn't get even more disturbed, some tentacle-like appendage comes out of the central mouth and strikes at you. Moving on. You are directed to a place called the Historical Society, which fittingly offers great exposition about the town of Silent Hill. You get some really disturbing images and revelations here, but the weirdest of them all is a mine shaft somehow in the back wall, which leads you on a very long descent down into hell. Once again, this game manages to be scary when technically nothing is happening. You keep going down and down and down these stairs, a foghorn blaring in the distance. You can see some fixture on the wall, and then a few seconds later you see it again. Is that the same one? No, it can't be. Am I still going down? Am I going through a loop? How long have I been running? All of these thoughts going in your head until finally you arrive at the prison. Now, if the location of this area wasn't strange enough, you also have to jump down a deep hole in the floor. This isn't the first time James has made some questionable jumps in this game, but they really ramp up here. You get the feeling that you are literally descending into hell, and this area is hell. It is so incredibly stressful here. Dark, dank, damp. All of these words mean the same thing. More falling, more dreamlike conversation.
Hi, James.
But without the solace and security that a dream would bring. It's more like solitary confinement and the maximum security of a prison. It's disorientating, it's multi-leveled, and it has a new enemy leg type that scuttles above your line of sight, really taking advantage of the timer-based light system here. The tick, tick, tick that speeds up to let you know that you're about to be plunged into darkness again. Religious iconography and the crime and punishment element is rampant here, as you're tasked with collecting these weights that you put in front of a Lady Justice statue. Also, this courtyard area is probably the most scary part of the prison. I mean, just looking on the map and seeing the sheer size of this area did not inspire good feelings. Actually going into it for the first time is even worse. In complete darkness, if you deviate from walking completely straight ahead to the scales, you will hear footsteps moving, galloping around you, but nothing that you can see. It makes you not want to stick around, but sadly you have to keep coming back to this area as part of the puzzle. Later the area becomes more visible and reveals not the source of the noise, but more horror and torment. This area presented horror in a much less subtle way. That's not necessarily a criticism. It was still scary, but a stressful kind of scary. Having to rapidly input a random combination of 3 digits while being bitten at by a swarm of bugs. You enter a small cell and the doors swing closed behind you, locking you in this enclosure with metal spikes from floor to ceiling for an agonizing minute, and more inexplicable audio scares. Gotta love those. Now you'll find yourself in the penultimate area with 2 more deep holes to jump down, and then this really excruciating elevator descent. Welcome to the Labyrinth, probably one of the strangest game areas. As you enter the first sub-area, it's reminiscent of the apartments. Dingy hallways, old newspapers. How does this place exist so far underground? We are underground, right? This subsection is mostly to do with the character of Angela, who I briefly mentioned in passing, and I'm not going to go into her because she deserves a whole other video essay on her character. But the boss fight here, Abstract Daddy, was incredibly visceral. It disturbed me quite deeply, and honestly made me fear one's own Silent Hill and what personal monsters could haunt you. The center point of the labyrinth is one of the most mind-boggling things conceptually. A rotating cube with different faces and symbols. With each turn, you change the alignment of the doorways and stairs, reminiscent of the enigma and mystery of an M.C. Escher painting. Also in this area is a strange wall, an archway filled with what looks like flailing limbs, perhaps legs. James is unable to pass through at this moment. Perhaps they stop him, or maybe he simply doesn't want to throw himself into the fleshy wall orifice. Each sub-area of the labyrinth has more unfathomable horrors to it, more bloody meat bags swinging like a pendulum, more fleshlight demons, desolation, callbacks, panic. Now, as nauseating as navigating this labyrinth was, the culmination and departure of this area was incredible. But you'll have to experience the satisfaction of all these things coming together for yourself. And finally, the hotel. Probably one of my favourite areas in this game because it kind of comes out of left field as to what one expects from the last area of a horror game. It's light, it's beautiful, it's pristine and spacious. The hotel itself is a vital plot point of the story and serves as closure. As much as I would like to discuss it and why it's significant, I'm just going to sum up some of the most scary moments that I found. The hotel's serenity and almost perfectly preserved nature is its scariest thing. A moment captured in time, so that when James starts to remember, starts to piece together what cannot be, the hotel reflects this. The wallpaper peels, the windows are smashed, and insidious rot begins to take over this once beautiful memory. The effect of the environment changing slightly around you makes you double back and go, wait, this wasn't like this before, was it? That kind of second guessing is very scary. There is also some really good bait in some of the rooms. At one point you hear this really odd noise from next door, and as you clamber out onto the balcony, bracing yourself for what you might find, you see a bed, walls, furniture all drenched in red, and it's a pretty stark and blatant scene. The game doesn't really go overboard with gore or blood unless it's concerning combat and the monsters, so something really horrible must have happened recently in this room until you find a tin of red paint on the floor. Yeah, nice one, guys. The fact that this game keeps you on edge the entire time makes dark humour moments like these so good. There's also the segment near the end where you can only enter if you deposit all of your items and leave them behind, including weapons. So in the next area, you have to sneak your way around, trying not to get into combat, because James isn't a fighter. He can't use these hands to fight. So it's at this point it really dawns on you how weak he is. Having gradually accrued all of these multiple ranged and melee weapons throughout the game, only to be left with nothing, so naked and vulnerable. all to get answers. The final fight and multiple possible endings of this game really broke me. I don't think I'm totally over this game. Having finished it for a while, it scared me, horrified me, but it also moved me. I can't believe that a game like this exists. I had heard many great things about the Silent Hill 2 game, and yeah, I'd seen some monster designs and thought, that's cool, but I never expected to go through an experience that stimulated and challenged all of my senses, that tested my judgment, my morality, how a piece of dreamlike fiction could shake and stir me to the core, that I began to question my own psyche. At the end of the day, it feels far too reductive to call this just a horror game. So please go and play it. Even if you don't like horror, it's worth all of that pain and discomfort to experience a story like this. In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised me you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you to come to see me. But you never do.